This is Ali, and in today's video I'm giving you my complete workflow on how to edit sunrise and sunset pictures. I feel like it's really important to be good at both video and stills these days, especially with Instagram. So yeah, let's just cut the bullshit and jump right into it. Okay guys, so we're going to jump straight into Lightroom and I'm going to show you the first example that I shot in London around sunset time in St Paul's Cathedral. And these are the colours that I eventually was happy with, and this is what I uploaded on Instagram. And if I reset this, you can see what the raw image was like. And if I go back to how it was after, this is what I ended up with. And the way I'd like to do it is basically by using my presets. Don't worry, you don't have to buy them. They will save you some time if you do buy them, because you can just apply it and you're good to go, maybe make some adjustments. But in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I get these colors. Now, I'm going to reset this again, and we're going to start sort of with the basic tab here. I'm going to change my temperature. I feel like I can bring that up a little bit, maybe somewhere around here. And my tint, I'd like to add a bit more sort of magenta, maybe somewhere around 20. I then like to add some shadows and sometimes bring the highlights, but in this situation I'm going to leave the highlights as they are because I feel like they're already well contained. So I'm going to bring that to maybe somewhere around here, and I will add some contrast, just a little bit, maybe somewhere around there, and then I will bring down my whites to maybe -10, bring up my blacks somewhere around here. And then I used to add a bit of clarity, but recently I've actually been leaving that at 0 and not really touching it much. And I'm going to leave dehaze for this. I'm not going to touch that. Same with vibrance and saturation. Now I'm going to add some tonality to the image because it's very, very flat. I'll add some to the highlights, maybe to around here somewhere, and then add some more lights, maybe to about 20, 28, 29. And I would bring up my darks and shadows, maybe just a little bit over there. I would also like to add some sharpening in post, just a little bit, so maybe up to 50 or 49. And then I'd like to add some color in my calibration tab. So I may bring up the hue. You can see what that does if you bring it all the way up. So maybe to 15, and then bring the saturation down a little bit. And then add some blues to the image and bring up the saturation maybe up to 19. And maybe I'll bring my highlights down just a little bit, not too much, and maybe add some exposure back to the image. And then this tab here shows you, on the histogram, shows you the overexposed areas, and you can see that these are the overexposed areas. And I'm kind of happy with that. It's not too much. So this is a useful option to tick to see exactly what you're doing to the image. Then I'd like to straighten my image, so I'll open that, and here we go, we have that straightened. And then maybe we'll add some colors to the image, maybe some more saturation to the oranges, not too much, just a little bit. And the hue, maybe bring down the luminance just a little bit. Maybe I'll add a bit more contrast. Yeah, and I'm kind of happy with this for now. Let's see what it does if we add a bit of dehaze, actually, a tiny bit. Yeah, a 10 of dehaze is actually not bad, so then I'd reopen that into Photoshop. I'm going to close the one we previously opened. So now we have it in Photoshop, and there's one last thing that I like to do, and just to add a bit of glow. So I'd copy my background and then I'd go to filter, Gaussian filter, and this is set to somewhere around 27 or 26. So if I go back to duplicate layer and then go to blur, Gaussian blur, and you can see it's at 27.5. So I usually like to go between maybe 20 and 27.5. So somewhere around here is good. And then I'd bring down my opacity to somewhere around 15 to 25%. Let's try 23%. And then I'll change the blend mode to soft light. And you can see it added that tiny bit of glow, and a lot of landscape photographers do this, and it just adds a bit more glow to the image and a bit more warmth, and I'm happy with that. That can go on Instagram. So that's the first sort of edit. Okay, so now I'm going to show you another image that I took on the same day, and you can see that I've removed this person from the shot. And again, for this, I used one of my presets. So if I reset this, this is what we had coming straight out of camera. And you can see that it's a beautiful sunset. And in an ideal world, I should have exposed for the shadows for one shot, and then did another shot where I exposed for the highlights, so for the sky, and then blend that together in post. So that's what most landscape photographers do. And in this instance, I just didn't really have the time, and I was doing everything handheld. So I sort of just exposed for the highlights and took the shot. Now for this, you can see what happens if I apply one of my presets. Some of them will be very extreme, so we'd have to be careful with that. So you can see what the sunset glow does here. It's kind of what I eventually arrived at, but this is too much because it introduces a lot of color noise and artifacts. So the way I edited this image is by going into my sunset glow preset, and then I brought these down to not make it as extreme as it is here. But so obviously if you buy the presets, then you will get this effect, and you can do exactly what I did. And I'm going to show you how I went about doing that. If we go to the basic tab, I'm going to maybe increase my temperature a little bit again, maybe somewhere around here. And then again, bring up my tint just a little bit, somewhere around there. I would then maybe add some contrast like we did earlier. Bring down my highlights just a tiny bit, so we can see more of the sun here. And then bring up my shadows somewhere around here. Bring down my whites somewhere around here. Bring up my blacks. For this, I may add just a touch of clarity, just because I know it was a bit soft, and when shooting against the sun you get a bit of that. and I would then maybe add some vibrance to the image and some saturation. And then if we go into my tonal curve, I'm going to do the same thing we did earlier, bring up the highlights to maybe somewhere around here, and bring up my lights somewhere around here, and then same with the darks and the shadows, just a little bit, somewhere around here would be fine. And add some sharpening, and that's kind of good to go. I would maybe do some local adjustments to bring up these shadows here. So you can do it by using a brush and bringing up the exposure just a tiny bit on St. Paul's Cathedral. Maybe a little bit there. Maybe make the brush smaller. Maybe add a bit of overall exposure to the image, somewhere around there, and then maybe bring down the exposure on the sun just a bit. Maybe bring down my highlights as well. See, that was too much, so I'm going to leave that. Maybe bring it down just a tiny bit here. Okay, and that's kind of ready to go into Photoshop. And I'd open that into Photoshop. I'd then do a 4:5 crop for all my pictures actually. I'd maybe go over here. Actually, I want more of the sky in, so I might go there instead. To get rid of this person, it's quite simple to do. We use clone stamping and just get rid of them. But again, I would do the same sort of process of creating a new layer, and then I'd go into filter, blur, and then Gaussian blur, and then I'd leave that as it is for this shot. Maybe go back a bit. Yeah, somewhere around there, and then I would bring the opacity to maybe somewhere around 24% and change it to soft light. And this image is, I'm happy with this image, and I think it, it can go straight onto Instagram now. Just before I save this, I change my editor mode to 8 bits per channel, and then I change my color space to sRGB, and then save as, and I can just save it as an export, and then I'm good to go, but I'm not going to do that because it's already saved. Let me show you one last example now for my trip to Northern Ireland. So the final example was from the Giant Causeway, and again, in an ideal world I would have exposed one shot for the shadows and then one shot for the highlights, the sky, and I would then combine these two shots together in post. But again, for this I didn't have enough time, and I was literally running down the hill to try and get a shot, so it was kind of very quick. I had to just put the camera on the tripod and take a picture as quickly as possible. And if I show you how it came out on camera, this is what I had on camera. Again, you can see that I'm only exposing for the highlights here. If we use my above horizon sunset preset, this is what you get. This is sort of the before and after. You can see what my daytime film preset does. Again, it's nice. And then I've got my sunset glow which is a bit too much for this. So maybe I'd start with the above horizon sunset preset and take it from here. And now this was shot on the 1DX Mark II at 16mm and f2.8 and 200th of a second, ISO 100. And there's quite a bit of distortion here, so I'm gonna enable profile corrections in my lens corrections tab, and Lightroom does that automatically for you. Then I may straighten the image. It's a lot better. And then I can start playing with my temperature. My temperature is actually fine for this. Maybe I'll bring the tint up a little bit, maybe to over here, because I like to bring up the pinks and the sort of purple colors in the clouds, if there are any. And I'd then bring down my highlights a little bit so we can see more of that sun. Maybe just somewhere around here. And then bring up my shadows. So maybe here, bring up the whites. Actually bring down the whites a little bit for this, just because I want to see more of the sunset. Bring up my blacks again, maybe to quite a bit, maybe somewhere around here. And then I would maybe add a touch of clarity, not too much. And then we'll go into my tonal curve, and then we'll add some more to the highlights, more to the lights, and then same for the darks, not too much, and the shadows maybe to a +12, and that's looking a lot better now. I would then maybe add some detail, just a little bit, and maybe a bit of vibrance, not too much, just a little bit, and a touch of saturation for this part. And then again, I'd open this into Photoshop, I'd do a 4:5 crop, maybe somewhere around here. And then again, I'd copy the background and I'd go into my filter, Gaussian filter, apply that, and bring down the opacity to somewhere around here, and perhaps, and then change it to soft light. I could add some exposure adjustments or levels adjustments, so I can bring up my midpoints a little bit, and maybe somewhere around here. Yeah, that's a lot better, and I think this one's ready to go on Instagram. So yeah guys, this is how I edit my sunrise and sunset pictures. Another example that I want to show you really quickly that kind of goes through taking multiple exposures is perhaps this one here. So this shot was done or achieved by taking 2 exposures. So brighter exposure, which is this one, and then a darker exposure, and then combined together. So in the same way, so I took one bright exposure over here and then another dark exposure here, so just to preserve more of the highlights. So I would bring these together into Lightroom and Photoshop and then merge them together to create one shot. This is another example where you can see I've used my daytime preset. This is the before and this is after you apply the daytime film preset. The daytime film preset is actually one of my favorite presets that I'd like to use. So yeah guys, this is how I like to edit my sunrise and sunset shots. If you have any questions, as always, put them in the comments down below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. and stay creative, and I'll see you in the next one.